Whilst we all talk about talent shortage, actually for me it's an opportunity shortage. We've got the people
are there.
Yeah, lots of businesses won't take new passes. We need to stop doing the same thing over and over. It's Einstein's definition of madness. Decided it was better to be homeless than it was to be in the foster care system.
I want them to remember me as a survivor, as a champion, and as a fighter.
I'm not giving anyone a handout. All we do is remove barriers.
Yeah.
So for every pound the government have given us, we've actually given back £6.50.
And it should be flying at you. It's not though, is it?
No, it's
Why
not.
not? This is so good. I've just sat down with two of the most amazing people, Yasmin Actar and Jen Swain, MBE, and discovered the efficiencies that warehousing and logistics can get by better recruitment. Welcome, Jen. Welcome, Yasmin.
Thank you,
you.
Tony.
Jen,
Yeah.
what an amazing few weeks you've had. Recognised in the King's Birthday Honours List, MBE. What does that mean to you personally?
Well, it was I'm blown away by the recognition, to be honest, Tony. It's wonderful. But the biggest thing for me is what it means for road to logistics. Yeah. I'm all about, trying to raise the profile of what we do. We're doing some amazing things, but ultimately there's only 7 of us.
Yes.
So getting that awareness out of what we do and trying to get more support and more people on board to benefit from our initiative, that's really ultimately what my hope is for getting the honour.
Cool. Before we go into Claire Bottle's opening question, tell us a little bit about Road to Logistics.
Okay, so Road to Logistics is a not-for-profit established to tackle the industry's talent shortage problems effectively by working with people facing barriers to employment into training and careers, either as a HGV driver or working as a warehouse operative, and we give them a forklift truck RTITB accreditation.
Right.
So that is it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that.
We'll come on to that, I'm sure.
That's the...
Yasmin, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, why you're here. Jen's asked you to come down.
I'm gone blank. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just looking for a new career, to be honest.
Okay.
And when Jen approached me for LGV, I was taken away. It was something that I've never thought of doing, something that I thought I wasn't comfortable with doing. When I used to think or look at trailers, it used to give me anxiety on the road. I used to try and avoid driving next to them or, and then when Jen approached me, it just gave me an idea of a new career.
Right.
Something that can give me a bit of a thrill in life to take on board. And I wanted to try something new.
Fantastic. We'll come on to a bit more about the individual stories in a bit. We're going to get straight into it. The bottle opener question from Claire Bottle. Programs like Road to Logistics are often talked about doing good. But Jen, you're not a do-gooder. Tell us more about the hard business benefits of diverse recruitment championed by yourself at Road to Logistics.
Absolutely. So I've done this type of work now for around 8 years, 9 years. Started at Clipper Logistics with the Fresh Start scheme. And I can categorically say that I'm not somebody that can do something if it doesn't work, if it's not effective. And I have lived and breathed every day just how effective what we do is, and I suppose the alternative talent solutions, if you want to give it a title. So if you look at Road to Logistics on our stats, I think the big thing that really differentiates is that we have a 94% retention rate after 12 months.
Wow.
So when you look at one of the issues in our industry, it's not just recruiting, it's retaining talent. And we know that there's lots of people that have a HGV license that don't use it. And so by working with people who are finally given a chance, they pay you back in spades with loyalty. So, that 94% retention rate speaks for itself. But one of the other big things is if I look back at Clipper and the work we did in warehousing, we did a program with MenCap bringing in people with learning difficulties and disabilities. And week in, week out, their KPIs around pick and pack rates and punctuality, all of that sort of stuff was head and shoulders above the rest of what was 1,000 colleague warehouse. And those 15 individuals week in, week out had the best KPIs. And I suppose more intangibly, it's hard to put a stat around it. But one of the big bits of feedback I always get from operations particularly is that it changes the culture within a warehouse, particularly when you've got people who are there sort of giving them a job actually helps their self-worth and their confidence. They're not there just to pay the bills. They're there because, you know, they really, really, really want to work. And for one reason or another, that's been denied to them previously. So they come to work with a whole different approach and attitude. They're not just there sort of begrudgingly, looking at the clock, waiting for their day and their shift to be done. They turn up with a bounce in their step, and that's infectious, and it has an effect on the people around them. And the amount of time someone's come up to me in ops who at first has been a bit, oh, is this gonna be a bit of a headache? Is this gonna cause more work for us? Is this gonna cause us, you know, is this gonna take us away from the day job? Who've come back to me a few months later and gone, Jen, this is the best thing we've ever got involved with. It's amazing. You know, the individuals are fantastic, and a lot of it is about breaking stereotypes and getting people to understand that these individuals pose a huge amount of potential and have a lot to contribute. They just need maybe a little bit of adjustment in how you bring them into the organisation or the type of training they get to allow them to thrive.
You mentioned Clipper Logistics, and that's, I'm assuming, how you know Steve and Val from Tempest Nova. You know, we've had them on the first episode, and what you've just said echoes exactly, you know, the results they get. Yeah. Do you work with Tempest Nova, or are you just busy mates?
We are busy mates. I love Val and Steve incredibly, but no, we do work with them. Actually, Val and Steve are my inspiration, to be really honest with you. I'll tell you a funny story. So day one of my Clipper journey, I was taken to Armley Prison to meet Val and Steve. It was a baptism of fire in lots of ways. So Clipper had never had an internal talent function before, which for an organisation of that size was quite unheard of. And I had never worked in internal talent before either. So it was, a baptism of fire. And then that was compounded on day one, being taken to Armley Prison by Val and Steve, and then taken for a tour around the prison. When I went onto some of the wings and met some of the residents there. And that really was what triggered and fired my brain. And obviously Clipper were already doing some work with Val and Steve. But on day two, I went in and spoke to my boss and said, if we're doing this for people that have criminal convictions, why aren't we doing it for more people?
And that was why Clipper expanded it out into Fresh Start.
Was born. So I worked with Val and Steve really closely across my time at Clipper, and we did some pretty amazing things together. And then since being at Road to Logistics, we are now starting to work with them more. So we're looking at how we're collaborating across the Northwest with the piece of work they're doing in Cheshire. Obviously just things like introducing them. So I've introduced them to some of our employers that we work with that they might be able to support on a wider perspective than just finding drivers or warehouse ops. And we're talking a lot more and looking at other ways we can now collaborate moving forward.
How did Road to Logistics get started? How did you break away? Because I don't understand that bit at the moment.
So Road to Logistics was initially the idea came from Bob Harvey, who was on the board at Microlise and one of the initial founders of Microlise, one of the biggest telematic companies in the UK, and Richard Burnett, who was at that time leading the RHA. They're buddies, and they got together and were talking about the driver shortage, and we're talking about how we can possibly tackle it, and came up with the idea. It was actually born as an ex-offender not for profit. So they ran a pilot from Sudbury Prison, which is a Cat D prison, to basically train 10 residents, or it was about 6 residents in that prison to gain their license. And from that pilot, they then produced a business sort of a proposal that they took to the Department for Transport to ask for seed funding. That took a couple of years to get off the ground, and in that time I was doing everything I was doing with Fresh Start. The Department for Transport, Phil Martin, asked me to speak at the year of logistics, the initiative that they'd done, and I spoke at a few conferences, and I guess sort of caught the imagination of the Department for Transport in terms of what we were doing. And then they introduced me to Richard and Bob, and the sort of premise was, why don't you come and do for the industry what you've done for Clipper?
Who paid for the initial pilot? Because that must be somebody stuck their neck out there and gone, you know. Was that private sector money that just like a donation?
So it was Bob and a couple of employers that put their hand in their pocket to fund that first initiative to prove concept, essentially. And obviously it worked. I wasn't involved in that at all, but I do know that a couple of the lads that were on that programme, one of them actually now runs his own logistics company and has an O licence. Yeah, and the other guy, Howard Tennants, that was it. That was the employer that was involved, and he has got to a good level within there. I believe he's doing some driver training now within his role. So they've, there's been people that have not just sort of entered as drivers, they've actually developed their careers from that initial pilot.
So you did some speaking, somebody spotted you.
Yeah.
Come on then, Jen, let's go and do it. And so then what happened?
So it was our then MD, Jim French, who again is very well known in the industry, where he came out of retirement. As he says, he didn't get on with retirement. It wasn't for him.
It's not for everyone.
No. So he came out of retirement and me and Jim basically set it up. And I don't want to bore you with too much detail, but essentially the business plan that was created was that Rotor Logistics would be an apprenticeship provider.
Yeah.
It became very apparent very quickly that that wasn't going to work, because to get onto the register of approved training providers, you actually have to demonstrate that you've been operating as a training provider for 12 months.
Yeah.
So me and Jim literally had to start with a blank sheet of paper in the height of COVID. I won't fail to add. So we were in this really weird situation. We had all these employers desperate for drivers. We had money sitting in the bank that we weren't allowed to use to deliver training for. We could only use it to set the company up, and no real way of
Why was
doing
there a
any of
blocker
it.
on that money?
So there's just some complexities around what you're allowed to use certain.
So it's ring-fenced government money, can't be used.
So it's about giving somebody a qualification, I believe. Don't quote me on that verbatim. But essentially the money was there to establish the company, pay salaries, get the business or the charity up and running. And then we had to find a way to operationally find money to deliver training. So that was literally what we spent the first few months doing, and identified that we could get funding through the likes of the Department for Work and Pensions, which is where we started. And from that's then grown and grown for us to tap into various pots of money that the government give for training and upskilling people. And now we're diversifying again to try and look at, now we've got absolutely proven track records with the stats that we can come on to shortly. Where we're saying to employers, this is a really viable alternative to traditional recruitment methods, and actually works out to be much more cost effective.
And you've got better retention and rates, etc., etc. Just under 1 million NEETs in the UK, so that's somebody not in education, employment or training. 600,000 are considered inactive rather than unemployed. How much focus do you put on trying to get to that group?
Big focus, particularly at the moment. So when we started, we purely focused on HGV. And obviously that's difficult because that immediately puts a barrier in, because someone needs to have a driving licence for 12 months before they can learn to drive a lorry, which then means it becomes difficult to support young people, because let's face it, a lot of young people that are not in education. A lot of them don't have driving licenses. And we also support a lot of people coming out the care system who, again, have never been able to afford to get a driving license. So we started looking more at warehousing, and obviously, actually, that's more of my baby, because spending 3.5 years at Clipper, living and breathing warehouse ops and supporting recruitment within the 45 sites we had, that's what I know, probably, or did know better than I knew HGV. That's changed in 6 years. So I wanted to introduce warehousing because there's a need, there's still talent shortage around warehouse ops and forklift, but also it allows us to access people who don't have driving licenses. So that barrier that exists for the needs of the legality of learning to drive a lorry no longer exists. So if we look at our warehousing programs, we've got lots of amazing examples of people, young people we've supported. If you want me to bring that to life with one specific example.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. So there's a young man called Levi, who was on our Cisco Hemel warehousing program. So Cisco were opening a brand new distribution centre, biggest in Europe, and they came to us to support with some of that recruitment activity. So we ran a program in Hemel to train 10 people, and about half of them were under 25. Levi is one story that sticks out. So when we met Levi, he was living in a hostel, 20 years old. His mum had drug and alcohol addiction issues, which meant that his grandparents brought him up. And he had a pretty decent, lovely upbringing with two grandparents that adored him. And then, unfortunately, they both passed away when he was only 12 years old, within 12 months of each other. Levi was then put into the foster system and was bandied around from pillar to post, and had such a terrible experience that by the time he got to 18, decided it was better to be homeless than it was to be in the foster care system. So he was homeless for about 9 months, and then he went into a hostel, which is where we met him. And Levi at this point hadn't got any qualifications. He hadn't finished his school. He'd never had a job, never been in work at all. Okay, so a typical example, or maybe not typical, but a very real example of a young man who falls into that NEET and also care leaver category. So he came on programme, and when we met Levi, he was very determined, a really determined young man. He recognised this for the opportunity that it was. He'd reached a stage in his life where he was like, Jen, I need something to change, and I'm the only one that's going to be able to change it. I don't want to be in a hostel. I want to improve my life and my circumstances. He'd just never been given the opportunity before.
Yeah.
And through the Road to Logistics programme, he came on programme, and during literally just the 4 weeks we spent with him in the classroom, we just saw his confidence grow and grow and grow. He went to the assessment centre, and I attended that assessment centre to support our learners, and it was a dedicated Cisco assessment centre for Road to Logistics, which was wonderful. The Cisco story is amazing. I'd like to talk about that in a bit, because it's a fantastic example of what good looks like. And he smashed the assessment centre. He did really well. And he's been working in Cisco since the 4th of December. Absolutely flying. The Cisco absolutely love him. He's doing really, really well. What's also wonderful is we carried on doing programmes, and when we launch a programme, we go and deliver information sessions to potential learners to tell them all about the course, all about the opportunity with Breaks or Cisco Group, and see if they're interested in joining.
How do you find those potential learners?
Many different channels.
So, for example, right, lovely Yasmin's here, sat very patiently. How did your paths cross? Because they must have at some point.
DWP, essentially, was Yasmin, yeah?
Yeah, it was through DWP. Obviously, they were given set numbers to pick from, and I can't remember the ratio of the numbers that I was picked from. When I got a phone call from Jen, she asked me what makes me think that, present yourself, what do you want from this? So for me, it was to get out there, have a career change, And then when I spoke to Jen, before that I was a bit on the edge about it, but when I spoke to Jen helped me to understand about the program a bit more, and it got me thinking that somebody so positive, with that thought process, she changed my mind to thinking that no, I can do this, and it's a good opportunity to be on the program, and it has proved to be a good opportunity up to now, and for me it was a life change.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Yes, I was basically working in care for 25 years. I've worked in care homes, I've worked in, community care for that long, and I couldn't progress further on. And my personal choice was that because I've got elderly parents as well, so it was like I wanted to do something from home. Now, unfortunately, I haven't got that many qualifications to back me up to work from home, or I've not had those opportunities. But when this program came, I was thinking from care to, onto roads, how is it going to be a very, very big shift for me? But obviously when I spoke to Jen and when I got onto the program, and it was like, yes, I can get away from that career change into something else. And I was in care for that long that I was too comfortable. I didn't want to leave. But unfortunately, due to health reasons, I couldn't carry on either. And so it was like, I'm going to have to change, unfortunately, for myself.
A bit scary then.
It was very scary, because from care to a HGV driver, it's like a very big shift. But when I got onto the program, and from the support of Jen and Dave and everybody in the team of Roads to Logistics, and when we met Cisco and, and Breaks, and when we met everybody from there as well, our team and myself got a bit confidence inside us to say that, yeah, we were going in the right direction here. There is somebody who's helping us, who's giving us the push to go and do it.
So how quickly from the first conversation were you actually involved and, finding out and getting stuck into it?
Well, first conversation with Jen, before that, I was very, very low. I was hitting rock bottom. It's like, I can't do this, because there's that, when I was reading about it, when I got told about the program from DWP, before I spoke to Jen, I was reading about it, and as a woman, it's kind of like, and as a South Asian, woman, it's like, are we allowed to do this? Can we do this? But when I spoke to my dad and my mum and my husband and my sister, and they were like, listen, there's nothing stopping you. Why are you stopping yourself? It's in your head. Don't worry from our perspective. Don't worry from the community or the woman thing. Go out there and do it. Today's the day and age where you don't think that, you think beyond that. So it was like, okay, I've had that support from my family. And then DWP, obviously, they were wanting us to get onto that program. So for me, it was like, right, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see if I can do it. Because I'm a loser for memory. So for me, it was like, how am I going to remember all this information? How am I going to get onto the road with? I'm a car driver anyway, but a car and a truck is a massive difference. So it was like, how can I do this? I'm scared at this point. But then slowly, as the program started revealing itself, and then I was doing a lot of discovery. I was watching YouTube channels. I was when I went on to Google to ask about women in this profession, it was very low. It was like, I think it's about 1% to 2% in England at the moment. And it was like, okay, this is enough for me to push myself to do it and say, well, do you know what? We can do it as well. We can't just sit back and say, this is a man's job, or, we can't do this. Women can't do this job. We can. In today's day and age, we can do anything we want. So it was like, get on it.
There's a future podcast coming up all about women in logistics. It should be out in September. When did you start? Where are you up to now? I know you're planning to start at Breaks. How much interaction have you had with them?
We started in April. The program started in April, but I think it was around about Feb, March when we got involved in talking about it. When they released the project in DWP, it was around about Feb time, and I spoke to Jen around just in mid-March. Then we started the 2 weeks training at Breaks in April. That was in-house. That was to meet the teams. That was to meet our own team, the 10 people that were involved. And we met Breaks staff, the management team there. We met the management from the driver's side as well, the HGV driver's side.
So is there some warehouse training in that, or?
Yeah, no, not warehouse training. This is all HGV.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's all HGV. But we met the staff there, we met the management there who helped us to understand a bit more from their perspective as well. So it wasn't just from us or DWP or Roads to Logistics, it was them as well. The Breaks were involved as well. They introduced their program. They were very happy to see us. Like, we were all, we were asking questions. We were wanting to know, more depth into Breaks rather than Roads to Logistics, because it's our turn to ask them, because they're going to be our future employers. And they were very helpful. They were really open with the answers. They helped us. We went for a tour as well around the warehouse. They shown us the in-house training, the in-house work.
How did you feel at that time?
To be honest, I've had a bit of a warehouse background.
Right.
So when I was young, when I came out of school, the first thing was just to get into a job, and warehouse was one of them. So I was okay. I knew like what the work system is in the warehouses, but knowing that this is something that's going to happen behind our backs, seeing the staff doing that work for us, to load and unload, to get the items ready, to get the delivery ready, it was like, they're the first response for us. They're the ones that will be doing our work for us to go out and do our job after them.
And I guess it made it feel more real that this was going to be your employer.
Yes, it was a very nice experience.
Good.
It was a very nice experience.
Exciting?
Beforehand, very excited.
Daunting?
I wouldn't say so now.
Just
exciting. I wouldn't
exciting.
say so now. The tests are a bit nerve-wracking.
So when's your test booked for?
August 14th.
Nice. Good luck.
14th of
You've
August.
got your mod 4, haven't you?
Yes.
You passed your theory.
I've passed my mod 4. I've passed my theory. I've got the 3A and the 3B to do now.
Yeah.
So
There's the commitment from Breaks and Yasmin then. How quickly does that happen?
Very quickly. So I'd say the relationship we've got with Breaks is like my perfect partnership. It's what I've been striving for since we set Road to Logistics up, because in my head, all of this works when it's done properly in partnership. And that's what we look for from our employers where we can, is to get the level of partnership we've got with Breaks. So behind the scenes, so we've got all of the learners have now passed their theory. We've got our first 2 learners have passed everything, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, I'm meeting with Breaks every single week to update them on the progress, where people are up to on programme. Obviously, there's a bit of complexity to it because of all the different elements that people need to pass. Some people pass first time. Actually, in the Warrington cohort, they've all been absolute superstars. They really have. And Yasmin is an amazing example of the quality of our learners. I've never known anyone work as hard as she has to get her theory passed and everything else. So Breaks, literally now, we're liaising with them. As soon as people are passing the programme, they're going straight in for an interview and assessment with Breaks, ready to start work.
What's involved in passing the programme?
Getting your HGV licence,
so
essentially. So the programme is 2 weeks in the classroom where we deliver training that goes above and beyond the normal vocational licence. That's aimed to get our people work ready, but it's also aimed to give them much more contextualisation, because part of the problem we've got in our industry, and the bit that frustrates me, is whilst we all talk about talent shortage, actually for me it's an opportunity shortage, because lots of businesses won't take new passes. So people rely on traditional recruitment methods in an industry where we recognise that pool is shrinking and shrinking. So we have to do things a different way in order to solve the problem. And brakes are absolutely on board with that. So yeah, they're going to be going into interview as soon as they pass. So sorry, I've remembered what I was saying now. I had completely forgotten then. So part of the problem is the fact that a lot of companies don't want to take new passes, and some of that I recognise and we've worked out is that when someone puts themselves through a theory and a practical training, when they walk out of that test centre with that piece of paper in their hands, actually the gap in their knowledge and what's needed as actually a commercial driver, there's a big gap. So part of what we do, the 2 weeks in the classroom, is to give them that extra sort of theoretical education. So we cover tachographs, we cover bridge strikes, we cover driver's hours. And it's not just, these are what driver's hours are, it's, this is what happens if you don't keep within them. These are the consequences.
Also mental health as well.
Yeah, the mental health stuff. We cover with brakes, we go into food and drink distribution. We look at multi-temp environments. We look at food hygiene. We look at customer service because they're doing multi-drop. So they're going into lots of different kitchens and environments, and it's teaching them how to adapt to the needs of the different customer, communication skills, driving in urban areas, all sorts additional that we can bespoke. If we have a relationship like we've got with brakes, we can absolutely bespoke the training.
So from brakes' point of view, dealing with rotor logistics makes that a more safe, feels like a better commitment rather than just going out, right, this person's got an HGV license, but they've never used it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, you know, one thing I will say again about misconceptions is, you know, just because you've got a HGV license and you've driven for 10 years doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have not going to have an accident.
Absolutely.
You know, people get complacent. Obviously, I'm not saying that about all HGV drivers. There's a lot of absolutely amazing drivers out there and we are huge ambassadors for them. But when you look at accidents, there is a bit of a misnomer that they're all caused by new drivers. And I personally think that if, and this is the big if you give somebody the right quality of training and they don't know what they don't know, but you teach them the right way, then you are creating far safer drivers and you're able to teach them in your way, in the way that your business wants them to drive and to work. And I guess that's the big advantage of working with rotor logistics is we can provide all of that training.
1 million people in the UK with a Category C and Category E licence. That's the old Class 1 and Class 3,
Class 2,
Class 2, sorry. Just under 300,000 active LGV drivers keeping supply chains moving. Yet 25% of haulage businesses report having driver vacancies. They must be spending a fortune trying to get recruitment if they're not taking people we've just passed. Does the industry have a shortage of people or is it a visibility issue? And another question, I can merge these two together. Does it still have an image problem? Shit brew rooms and facilities are terrible. And, you know, it was talked about during COVID, you know, it's not going to be good enough. And does it move forward at all in that point of view?
It has moved forward. I would say we still have a lot of the same frustrations. And I think that when you have a talent shortage problem or a people problem as large as we do, you know, the RHA reported we need 50,000 new drivers into the industry a year to stop us going back to the crisis levels we did in COVID for the next 5 years. You know, it's far more complex than it just being one problem. So there is definitely I'd say less of an image problem and more of a visibility problem. Okay. So when you go into schools, you know, you've got kids that talk about wanting to be policemen or firemen or nurses or whatever it may be. You know, logistics isn't on the curriculum. So how are kids ever going to aspire to work in our industry when they don't really know what it is? And I can say that firsthand because I go and do loads of careers fairs and events in schools, and my first question is always, what do you know about logistics? And out of the probably 1,000 kids that I've spoken to over the last 5 or so years, I can probably count on one hand the amount of people that have given me a accurate answer as to what logistics is. So that in itself presents a problem, because in my head, you know, so we've got wonderful initiative like Generation Logistics, which is doing fantastic things to create awareness in schools and colleges about what logistics offers as careers. And I'd go one stage further than that, because I think we need to be looking at young people not just from a when they're in university and graduating perspective, but actually capturing kids when they're 16 and demonstrating that logistics is a fantastic career option. Because I look at my son, James, okay, so he left school with a few GCSEs. He didn't do brilliantly. He's a bright lad. He's got type 1 diabetes and he had some health issues during his... But he didn't want to go to uni. That wasn't on the cards for him. He wanted to earn money. Now, I suppose if he didn't have a mum in logistics, so he was aware of that option, he quite probably would have gone down the route of going into retail or into hospitality, which is what a lot of young people see
just
as their
it's what
options.
They see. Yeah.
And James is now at 17 years old. He's been there for 12 months, working at Goggins Transport in Liverpool as a transport planner. And well, he started on day one in the transport office, and they're now starting to train him up. And he's earning really good money as an 18-year-old lad. He's got career development because they're training him now on the planning side. And that for me is a fantastic example of what kids could have on offer for them, but they don't know it exists.
There's loads of career development through warehouse and logistics, IT, engineering, robotics. It's huge.
My other son,
sustainability.
I'm on a one-woman mission to get all of my family into
you're doing
logistics.
well at that.
My other son is 16. He is autistic, okay, and he was a school refuser, so he is very typical of what you see as neat. And the reasons and the complications behind why young people can't access the workplace because of neurodiverse struggles and things like that. So he didn't have a mainstream education, and he didn't sit any GCSEs because he was not in a great place, and struggled with the whole fear, I suppose, of sitting an exam, even though he is the brightest kid you could possibly meet. He's now doing a digital support technician apprenticeship with the RTITB. And this is what we're talking about. It's not a talent shortage problem, it's an opportunity shortage problem. I'm lucky in the position I'm in that I was able to create an opportunity for my son, because now anybody that had seen my son's details on paper, in all honesty, if they didn't know him, would have gone, he's not got any qualifications, he's not really got any work experience. The kid's been working for the RTITB on this apprenticeship now for 8 weeks, okay? He's not missed a single day off. He's working his backside off. He completed 3 weeks of induction training in 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
The management team, the IT director, is blown away by his potential and ability. So for me, our industry as a whole, and these are very personal stories, but they reflect why I do what I do.
Yeah.
It's very weird in that my son, sort of my personal life has followed my work life, in that he only got his diagnosis in 2021, and we had no idea of the struggles he was going to have as a teenager when I started at Clipper or Road to Logistics. And I've been very lucky in that I've probably been able to support him more because of my experience doing what I'm doing in my day job. But for me, as an industry, we need to stop looking for, have they got experience and have they got potential? Can they be taught? Can they be trained? Have they got the right behaviours? That's how we solve talent shortage. We are never going to solve it by continuing to do the same thing over and over again in an ever-shrinking talent pool.
One of the questions I had, which is now the wrong question, is if Road to Logistics could get 5,000 people into driving careers, would it make a significant difference? I think what you're saying is we need 5,000 opportunities.
Yeah.
It's not a problem with
we've got the people.
The people are there.
Yeah, it's about, I guess it's about employers recognising there needs to be a shift in mindset. Sticking adverts on Indeed and hoping for the best and moaning that agencies can't fulfil demands. There's a reason for that. They're symptoms of the problem. They're not the problem cause. The problem cause is that there are too much... there's a mindset in our industry which is about we need to recruit people with experience. And I'm not just talking about drivers. I'm talking about across many different levels. Actually, what we need to be doing is more strategic. We are very culpable at being very reactive, and I understand it. You know, we're working in an environment where we're having to change and adapt to the needs of our customers. You know, we're dealing with very small profit margins. There's a lot to have to manage and deal with, and recruitment just feels like another thing to worry about. But we're so used to doing the place a job on Indeed or use an agency.
Do you think it's a bit siloed then? If the whole multimodal distribution supply chain got together, it might be able to generate...
But potentially, or it's as straightforward as stop thinking about hiring talent today, sort of experienced talent today, and start building your pipelines for tomorrow.
Yeah. So get into schools and
we'll look at training.
Yeah.
So it's not just about schools, it's about people like Yasmin, people who have got all the right capability, all the right attitude, all the right behaviours, all the right intelligence. They just haven't had the opportunity to take the training to get them to the place where they will make an amazing addition to the workforce. For me, recruitment should be looking at training and upskilling, not just recruiting people with experience.
They'll be forced to have to do that at some point. They're going to find it so difficult. They're going to have
I think we're sort of there really.
Yeah.
And I think unless people start to change that mindset and start pipelining and future-proofing and planning and create... So I've always talked about strategic recruitment. Recruitment's very transactional for a lot of people.
Yes.
If you employ strategic recruitment as part of your business strategy, then you will be much more successful than for people that just do ad hoc recruitment. And that's what organisations need to be doing. And ultimately as well, it's about forming partnerships. It's about, you know, bringing together different groups of skill set and organisations who can work together to get the end result, exactly like we're doing with DWP, Brakes and ourselves. That triumvirate partnership is creating amazing results in, you know, we've done 6 different programs now with Brakes and the DWP with outstanding results of people into work.
And is that attracting more people to come and have a look at what you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, we're very, you know, we've got a lot of employers who are very keen to work with us. Absolutely, who are starting to recognise the value. You know, when you look at how much one hire can cost you to recruit, which can be as much as £10,000 to £12,000, when you look at not just maybe agency costs, but the time it takes to interview, placing a job on Indeed, the skill you're losing if you haven't got that person in situ, people paying people overtime to fill that role. There's so much to it. If you can take some time and invest that money in training instead, then what you end up with are 10 people who 94% of them will still be with you 12 months later. So as a return on investment,
it's huge, isn't it?
It makes so much more sense than doing a traditional recruitment. I would caveat that with, if you're not in a talent short market, so if you're finding recruiting drivers really easy, brilliant. But that's not the place we're in. So I guess the biggest point is we need to stop doing the same thing over and over. It's Einstein's definition of madness. We need to stop trying the same methods and we need to do something differently. And I truly believe after 6 years, with the stats we've got, so we've trained 750 people. 89% of them have moved into jobs in logistics and 94% are still with the same company 12 months on. Those sort of stats, you know, demonstrate how well what we do works. And I guess my biggest ask is that the industry tries to start thinking a little bit differently about recruitment.
Is that your biggest barrier to expansion then, just the way the industry thinks?
That and funding.
Let's talk about funding then, because we touched on this on the phone. You know, you're 6 staff, 7 staff.
Yeah,
it's hard work funding. You said so. Why is it so hard?
There's a number of reasons. So first of all, the cost of training to get somebody a HGV license in particular is extensive. So when you're going to government pots of money and you're competing with other industries who might be training in digital skills or getting someone a CSCS card, and you've got a procurement person sitting holding those purse strings who's looking and thinking, just looking at the very face value of, that's going to cost me £3,500 a head, and that's going to cost me £1,000 a head. I can put 20 people or 30 people through that for the cost of what it cost me to put 10 through road to logistics. We get that barrier.
Where's that procurement person working?
In a variety of different, so DWP, Department for Education. Okay. You know, we can access
government side of it.
Government public sector funding. So obviously, you know, what I ask them to look at is the return on investment. Yeah, you might be able to get 30 people a CSCS card, but does that going to mean they're going to stay in sustainable employment? Does it mean they're going to come out the benefit system? Does it mean that they're going to be earning enough money to stop that risk of reoffending? Or do you spend the 35 grand to train 10 people, and all of those 10 people end up with 40 grand a year jobs out of the benefit system for good, reducing the reoffending cycle and all of the cost benefit of that. So when you look, for every pound the government have given us, we've actually given back £6.50 in savings and revenue created.
So it should be money should be flying at you, but it's not, though, is it?
No, it's
Why
not?
Because Stephen Val have the same problem, right? It's £3,000 to put somebody, you know, an ex-offender through. You know, that person might earn £35,000. It's 15 grand going back in, let alone the £57,000 cost of reoffending. You've got the same problem.
Yeah, we've got exactly the same problem. And it's literally that, you know, government funding isn't accessible as it used to be. The boot camp funding has been massively cut back and also devolved, so it's up to the individual councils what type of training they want to offer through that boot camp funding. And as I say, logistics just does not seem to be a priority at the moment with government, which is a real shame. You know, we're not on Skills England's priority list, which absolutely boggles my brain, Tony, because ultimately without logistics every other industry fails to move. Yeah, you know, you might have construction and on the list as a critical skill. Ultimately, if someone's building a house, are they getting all the products to site? You know, in its simplest vein.
This industry's going nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So ultimately, without logistics, the UK stops, and we saw that in COVID. Yep. So the fact that we're not on the Skills in England's critical skills list is ridiculous, to be honest with you. But all of those things compound to create the problem that it becomes very difficult to get funding, and it's also just not reliable. So we could go to the DWP in Warrington and present a case, and they'll bite your hand off and see it's the best thing in sliced bread. We'll go to another DWP in another part of the country and present exactly the same case, and they'll go, no thanks. Even though we've got outcomes, even though we can say we've got this employer who wants to give these people a job, they still struggle, or they still don't always say yes to the funding. So what we are trying to do, now that we have got that proven track record and we can demonstrate the value for money that we provide, is to ask for more employer contributions.
Okay.
And that is something that we are now doing more of. So I know I keep talking.
And somebody like Breaks, for example, who's been through it, are they more happy to give you something because they see the benefit of it?
So they've part-funded the Warrington programme. Yeah. Which then makes it a lot more easier to ask the DWP for funding in lots of instances. Right. And we've got smaller employers on board who are also contributing. So SWG and Swindon have put their hand in their pocket because they recognise they're really struggling to get drivers, and this is a way to absolutely ring fence job outcomes for people who are giving purpose bespoke training for that organisation. They deliver solar panels to consumers, so it's home delivery, so that comes with its own requirements from what the drivers need to be able to do. And so we're building all of that into the training for them. So again, the return on investment they're getting is amazing. And you've got 10 people who are really grateful that SWG want to give that investment in their time, and will repay that with loyalty in the job they do for them.
So maybe there's an opportunity for the smaller companies that might find it a bit easier to go, little board of directors or, 5 or 6 people. Yeah, we'll support this. Maybe they can make a difference quicker than a bigger company can.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I'd say there's room for all sizes of companies. This isn't just a corporate initiative. This doesn't just work for big companies. This works for all companies. And as I say, we are very flexible. So we will listen to what the employer's pain is around recruitment and around their skills, and we will create a solution that works for them. And they don't need to take 10 people off us. We can do group programs where we may be training a number of people that will then go to different companies. There's lots of different ways around it, Tony, and the key message, I suppose, is that we will listen and consult and create a solution that's right for that organisation.
Let's say by some miracle, somebody at the DWP said, there you go, there's £1 million, Jen. What does society get back?
Well, as I've said before, for every pound they give us, they get
back.
Wow,
so I've measured it. It's £6.5 million worth of return.
Yeah, they get a huge benefit to the company purse, but I think, to the government purse. But I think more than that as well, it's about the families, the individuals' lives that we're changing, but also the families' lives. We're working with a young man called James, who was again living in a hostel when we met him. He's another warehousing lad. He was married with a young daughter, and because of his personal issues, they had separated. He was homeless. He was living in a hostel. He's now he'd been through our programme. He's now working, and again, he's now got a lovely 2-bedroom house. He's back with his wife. He's back with his daughter. So we're not just changing the people's lives that we're helping through the training and into work. It's all the knock-on effect it has on those families. As I'm sure Val and Steve will have talked about, children that have grown up in poverty or in a house with someone who's been in prison are much more likely to go down that path themselves. If they've got a role model who they can see for themselves have pulled them out of a bad situation and taken ownership and actually gone and done something about it, that's life-changing, and that makes a difference onto how those children think, and I think that's the power in what we do, and why it works so well, is that we are not giving charity. I'm not giving anyone a handout. All we do is remove barriers. So people like Yasmin have an opportunity to change their lives. Yasmin's the one who's gone and done all that theory. She's the one who's worked her backside off to make sure she passes it. She's the one who's applied herself. And I think Yasmin will tell you, don't want to put words in your mouth, chick, but, your confidence has grown, hasn't it, since you've been on programme?
It has. Not just from my point of view, but I think general British public, we want an opportunity. We don't want to sit at home. Excuse me. We don't want to sit at home because there's a whole can of worms opening there as well. We've got mental health, you've got your financial difficulties, you can't provide stuff for your family, and that kind of puts a setback in your life. But when you get given an opportunity, it not just helps you financially, it builds you, boosts your confidence, it gives you the mental health capacity to to go out there and earn for yourself, for your family, to provide. And not just that, I think for our own country, when we work, we pay taxes, and that helps us to bring our economy, our tax rate, it helps us to build our country back. And from my thought process, I think each person sitting at home who's not had the opportunity, if they were given the opportunity, they will take it. Our country's suffering from a lot of employment issues, and that's where the whole rolling system starts, and that's where the mental health comes in. And I keep saying mental health is because I personally feel that when you are locked up in a room where you've not been given an opportunity,
Yes.
or you've just come out of education, you haven't got that GCSEs, you haven't got the A levels, you haven't got all that to prove that you can go out there and do something. People won't touch you, companies won't hire you, so therefore you go for small little role jobs, part-time jobs to build yourself up. But when you've got careers throwing at you, yeah, there you go, you know, you've got a career, do you want to build yourself up for it? People will take it. I did. And those people in my group in Warrington working now, for some of them are on the process of getting their job now. And when I speak to them, we all speak to each other. We share our experience, our theory test,
We've got
our
a WhatsApp
practical
group, haven't we?
Yes, we've got our WhatsApp
So I
group.
set up
can
a WhatsApp
imagine,
group for each cohort, because what's really powerful about doing it as a classroom is it's the peer-to-peer support system that creates, because they're all on the same learning experience, the same journey, and watching the bonds that are created from each course we do is a real privilege. And I'll be honest with you, I often have to turn my phone off on a Friday night because my phone's just ping, 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 with all the different WhatsApp groups, everyone. And what's lovely and what will happen, because these guys are going to be colleagues, I've witnessed this. We did a programme in Colchester about 3 years ago, and it went from I'm stuck on this hazard perception, what's this going on, I don't understand this question, can you help? And they're all like helping each other, to 2 years on, the WhatsApp group's still going, and they're like, can you tell me what the queues are like at Felixstowe Docks today? And watching that transition is amazing, you know. It's inspiring, and you know, people like Yasmin prove us right every day that what we're doing works.
So in a few weeks' time, you're going to be, you know, on the road for breaks.
Yes, hopefully.
So you must have. You will. No doubt
Defo.
you will. You must have thought about this. How does that change your life in the next year, 2 years, 5 years? You must have thought about what opportunity it's going to change, you know.
Well, it'll help me to build a future for my kids.
Yeah.
It'll help me to not just build a future for my kids, but it'll help me financially settle myself.
Right.
Because about you live with you.
I live with my parents, yes. So since I've come out of school, I've been to pillar to post. I've worked here, I've worked there, I've worked in care system. And unfortunately, the wage system's not great in care either. But I've been trying to pick up bits and pieces, and the more I pick up, the more, you know, it's a load, it keeps building up. But with this career now, with a financial I'd say agreement, I know I can do this. I know I can build a future for myself. I know I can move out. I know I can buy a house. You know, me and my husband can get our own house, and you know,
it's amazing, isn't it?
And I'd love to put a financial background for my kids to work off. And my own perspective is that before I leave this world, I say I want my kids to remember that as a single parent with my kids, from before I've built something up for them. And I want them to remember me as a survivor, as a champion, you know, and as a fighter. And I'd say that because I've gone through the cultural, the society pushes and grudges, and I've gone through all that. But when I started the road to logistics, it gave me a view. It told me that, Yasmin, that was the past. You've left it behind. You've struggled. Now think that you're not going to struggle further on. So you now need to build that road yourself. And roads to logistics and breaks gave me that platform to dream forward.
So good.
Sorry, emotional. That's lovely.
You know what, I'm doing it as well. I felt myself when I was doing the notes getting emotional, so I had a feeling I might go myself today.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. Right. No, you're going as well. It's really good. You wanted to talk about Cisco.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the reason I wanted to use Cisco, so it's Brakes. So we all know Brakes, a food distribution company. Cisco is the overarching company. And really, what we're doing with them is like the gold standard of why this works, because of their involvement, essentially. So, you know, they've invested some money in the Warrington programme, but we've also done 3 warehousing programmes in Hemel. We're doing a programme in Tamworth, which DWP are fully funded. So there's you know, that it's not so much about the financial contribution, although obviously that's really important. It's about them recognising, as I say, that if you look more around behaviours and potential and not just experience, then you can create something really special. So they've invested their time. So at the start of every program, we do the screening. Okay. And for me, I'm not too bothered about where someone's come from, what their background is, what mistakes they've made within reason, what things have occurred in their life. I'm more bothered about, do they recognise this as the opportunity that it needs to be? And that's what we screen on. Yeah, we want to feel convinced that they're going to put the hours in for their theory, that they're going to see the course through, and that they absolutely want to be a driver or a warehouse ops with FLT, and that they recognise it for the opportunity that it is. With breaks, they've actually got involved with the screening. So to make sure that Yasmin and the rest of the learners in Warrington are absolutely right for breaks, that they're not going to go through programming at the end of it, breaks are going to go, actually, do you know what, they're not right for this company. They're involved from day one. So they give us a situational judgment test that breaks have designed, that all of the learners did and were screened against as part of a wider screening programme. Obviously, they've offered us a classroom, so the learners are coming to site every day when they're doing the training. They're going to the canteen, getting the subsidised meals, all of that. They're getting some guidance and advice from the breaks teams themselves. They're going out on a day of work experience whilst they're training as well. And then obviously you've got the ring-fenced outcomes at the end. So with some of our employers, they will literally, they'll send me a vacancy list and I will cross-check that against programs we've got running and learners graduating from program, passing their tests of whatever description that is. And that's fine. If that's what employers want to work with us as, then we're happy to work in that capacity as well. But what I would say is that you can't beat the sort of partnership that we have had with breaks, because the outcomes are just tremendous because of that employer commitment. Because it's all well and good putting someone on a training course, but if you put them on a course and they know that that's their goal, that's their path, that employer is going to invest in them and are investing in them by giving them their time and their space in the classroom, it increases motivation and increases, that tangibility of this is what my life is going to look like, and that helps them. It's not easy to do your HGV. It's not, it's not an easy. It's a long process, and people have to want it to keep on the program. And obviously, we do a lot around that, but also actually having that tangible outcome, you can't buy that. That's priceless.
How does the world help Rota Logistics carry on?
That's a really good question, Tony. So I guess by utilising us, by coming and having a conversation with me about what their talent issues are. And let me just say, so we are now diversifying as well to look at more sort of construction type based roles and things like that as well. So really our model is built to remove barriers. So whatever the vocational training is, you can plug in all the additional stuff that we do. So all the classroom elements, all of the health and the mental health awareness, the day of budgeting and finance that we do to help people understand how to get from benefits to earning a good wage, and how to get yourself out of debt, and all of those sorts of really practical advice. We can build all of that around any vocational training. So if people are sitting there thinking, well, we need mechanics or what have you, what our programme does is give access to people who have got the capability, but they haven't got the opportunity. So come and talk to us. If you've got any pain around talent shortage in whatever sphere that might be, we can use our expertise in accessing sort of diverse talent pools and groups of people that are further away from the labour market to create a solution to get those that have got potential and absolutely want to do it to the place where they're ready to start work.
One takeaway from today that you think the viewers should take forward into their warehouse logistics business?
To stop looking at talent shortage as a problem because they can't find pre-skilled people, and start thinking about opportunity shortage and how they can start providing opportunities to people who absolutely have the capability to be a fantastic employee if they're given the right opportunity.
Yasmin, same question. One takeaway for people.
For me, there's a poetry in Urdu, and I won't read it out because you wouldn't understand it, but I'll try and explain it in English. It's for people who think inside the box and not outside. It's basically think outside the box, but think about being in the sky as one of the stars. And that basically means think beyond. Don't just sit there and think, I can't do this, I can't do that. Don't think that. You can do it. Go out and do it. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, it's easy. But please, like roads to logistics, we need more people to come forward to give people the opportunities, to get people out there, to give people that lifestyle that they can, you know, provide for their families. So for me, it's please help people to get out there.
The two of you are amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that string wraps it up.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Tony.
Thanks for coming down. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Tony made me cry.
That was brilliant. That was so good.
Thank you.
It
Thank
flowed
you.
really well.